The Bobcat Saga is a work of historic fiction that has elements of sci-fi, fantasy, steampunk, dust punk, and the supernatural, all wrapped up in a Western. 1898, Indian Territory. Will Firemaker is a Cherokee blacksmith living in Tahlequah who's like you and I, and he thinks that the legends of the tribe are just fairy tales until they begin to come to life. We're using authentic Cherokee mythology that's hundreds, if not thousands of years old, woven together in a new fictional narrative with new heroes, new bad guys, steampunk, dust punk, Dr. Shock wielding electricity, Colonel Silas with his advanced weaponry, and then the ancient beings from Cherokee mythology from the past, the ones are manifested in the story as well. So you have sort of the ancient past and the future all converging on present day 1898. The Bobcat is a fictional narrative, but it's chock full of actual historic facts, people, events, things that happened back around in 1898, and famous people from Oklahoma that were alive and kicking at that time. The Bobcat contains never-before-seen persons and events that begin to manifest themselves in the story. Evil forces born from the fires of the industrial age bring fear and danger to Indian Territory. Unable to withstand the technology and the superior weaponry that these adversaries possess, the people of Tahlequah, Indian Territory, must call upon the ancient beings of the past, from Cherokee mythology and elsewhere, to aid them in combating these forces from the future. The Bobcat Saga is an indigenous Western with elements of sci-fi, fantasy, steampunk, the supernatural, and even history.
All right, and there we go. Welcome to the show, everyone, and welcome the man himself, James. How are you going there, James?
Doing awesomely. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thanks for coming on. Always a pleasure to meet someone new out there making cool comics. And hello, Blue.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I must say, James, you're speaking my language in that trailer. I love alternate history. I love stories that go back into mythology and breathe life into it in interesting ways. So, and on top of that, I really dig that whole vibe you got there, leaning back in the chair, the whole the background. That's really cool. It's it's not really Australian at all. You probably heard already that I am an Australian. We have our own vibe over here, but you've got some, I don't know where exactly you are in the States, but it looks like what I imagine, some frontier place.
I am in Oklahoma, which is the former Indian Territory where this book is based.
Fantastic.
1898. So yeah, been here all my life. Got generations that have been here. I am actually a citizen of the Cherokee Nation.
Neat.
Through my grandmother. So that's also part of the reason I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yep.
You know, there's all these elements that are in the story that are from Tahlequah, which is where the protagonist is. And Tahlequah is where my grandmother went to college, got her teaching certificate at the Cherokee Female Seminary. And that was 100 years ago, you know, and the building's still there. It's a great thing to visit. So that's just one little element.
I run into, doing this, meeting new people, I run into a lot of people who are, into history and mythology and all that sort of stuff, and I'm right there with them. So I'm going to really enjoy digging into all that with you a bit later. But before we do that, we do have people who have showed up in the chat, and we always, every time, like to say hello to them, call them out, thank them that they're here. Blue?
Yeah.
Blue, what's going on here?
I'm here.
Yeah, but you're Blue. You are the grammar 1930s evil person. What's going on here?
Mel gave me espresso today. Twice.
Okay, that's all right. You are forgiven. You are
Things
forgiven.
happen.
Jim Cox is here. He's here too, but he'll decide whether to say I catch the Jack Show. Well, stay here, man. We're talking comic books here. Who knows what the hell is going on over there on the Jack Show? Mo Biggs is here. Yeah, I am. Everybody, there will be 2 live streams today. There's things happen when you run shows, and this is what's happening today. So after this show, stick around because I'm going to be starting pretty much straight away, and we're going to be talking to Clint and hopefully Charlie about Fatal. So stick around for that. Great to see you here, Blue. Jim Cox is here talking about wrenches. VIP is here saying hello. Oh, he's posting links. Fantastic. There's the link to the BOBCAT Unknown Territory, the issue 5 on Indiegogo. Black Rose Comics, great to see you here, my friend. Who else? Leroy. Hey, F you, Leroy. Stefani Renee is here. Always great to see you here, buddy. He says hello.
Hello, Stefani.
My lovely wife is in the chat. Hello over there in the house. Hex Allen Comics, how you going? He says, hell, you dirty, ornery bobcats.
We really should warn our guests that we blow 5 minutes at the beginning doing this.
We don't blow it. We don't blow it. We're saying hello to everyone. I mean, this is what people turn up. We say hello. I mean, that's the whole point of doing a show. Otherwise, we just put out videos. I mean, we've got to talk to people. That's the whole thing. Adega Outlaw. Eventually, if the show keeps getting bigger and bigger, we have to do less and less of this because otherwise it would take up the full time. But, we can, while we're still small, we can say hello. Abel Salazar's here. Fantastic. Rick Saylor, how you going? Anyone else? I think I got everyone. Felix Haas. Fantastic. He's also posting links. Oh, and Lord Crackhead. How the fucking chat. Right back at you. Fantastic. All these people came out to hear us talk to James. Your name is Hostler, and I was reading it earlier, and I realized I'd read it Holster, and I thought, oh man, that's so cool. His name is Holster, and he's writing this book. It's a Western, and I misread it. But still, it's pretty cool anyway.
Thank you. Yes, I have been called Holster more than Hostler in my life. That is for sure. They call me. It's like, is this James Holster?
Yeah, it's when you read things that are misspelt or whatever, and you just go to the word that you know more, and you just read it and look on.
Sure.
At the top of the show, when we have a new guest on, such as yourself, we like to get to know them a little bit, hear about their background in comic books, and all that sort of fun, interesting stuff that people who will be checking out the book in a little bit might want to know about yourself. So, first of all, James, how did you get into making a comic book?
It started actually about 45 years ago. I was a kid in elementary school. I was a comic book fanatic, lived and breathed the comics, the superhero comics. I was a fan of the Black Panther back in the early 70s. And that was sort of my inspiration for creating a character that was indigenous to Oklahoma, had the cat moniker, all these things. And plus I wanted to have a Cherokee Native American hero. So I birthed the idea for that when I was a kid and toyed with it just a bit, but I was young, didn't know what to do. But I always kept the idea and the feeling and the spirit of that in my heart. And then when I turned 50, I kind of revisited that, and I told myself, I said, you had these dreams and these ideas of things you wanted to do, and if you don't do it now, it's not going to happen. So that's when I jumped back into it at the age of 50. And again, the Bobcat thing was something I came up with years ago, but it was so far in the back of my memory. Here, this is a true story. You're going to love this. About 25 years ago, when I had my business underway and I was starting it, much younger person, I used to cross at a particular intersection up the street from there. And one evening, this massive bobcat crossed the road right in front of me. I was like, that's kind of like a spirit animal
Kismet.
thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it didn't happen a million times, but ever so often, if I left around the same time in the evening, right before dusk, that cat would cross the road in front of me. And so I was reminding myself, hey, there's this bobcat. He's talking to me. He's telling me
trying to tell you something.
That's right.
Can I stop you there, James? So
Yes.
you can hear from my voice, I'm Australian. We have wombats and kangaroos. We have dingoes. We don't have bobcats. What is exactly a bobcat?
God, you guys are missing out.
I know.
Yeah. He's a real stocky, swarthy cat. Of course, he has no tail, bobcat. He is the cousin of, in the same lineage of, the lynx. And I think the lynx get a little bit bigger, but it's a modest size cat versus like we have pumas or mountain lions or cougars. That's the same animal, and we have those here. They're not highly common, but they're much bigger. The mountain lions, but the bobcat is like a medium, small sized cat that ounce for ounce packs a lot of punch.
I just looked it up. So it's purely a North American animal.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's just there. That's cool. So it's like,
and of course they're highly indigenous to our area, which is one of the reasons I selected it. And I thought of it back then, and in the meantime, in 45 years, no one ever made a major character called the bobcat. So it was still there when I revisited it. All those years later.
Yeah, that is weird, isn't it? Look at how cool this thing is.
Mm-hmm. A little bit lynxy, a little bit cougary, and not in the creepy way. But yeah.
Right.
And they've got no tail, you say?
No tail, right. And they got the tufts on the tops of the ears, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then the beard hanging down, which I think is totally awesome.
And some wicked claws.
Oh yeah. The Cherokees, there's a name for the bobcat. Of course, in Cherokee, Gahay is bobcat or wildcat, Gahay. But they call the bobcat the woods ghost. In other words, he would walk through the woods quietly and creepy, and so it was like the ghost of the woods.
So you had your spirit animal was speaking to you. When did you actually start? You said you started in your 50s.
Yes, when I turned 50, that was like the magical thing. Just so all of you who are younger than 50, when you hit 50, your life is gonna come at you and go, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And where are you going? And so that's what happened with me. And one of the things was I'd started to revisit comic books. I met my childhood hero, Neil Adams, in Tulsa, right the year before that, and kind of got me stirred all up again. And so that's when I said, hey, you've got these ideas. You've got so much more life experience now than you had when you were a kid, of course, even though my brain probably worked better back then. But anyway, I was like, dude, you're going to do this now or it's not going to happen later, and you're going to fulfill this dream. And I approached it from the standpoint of, I'm just going to put everything on the table. All my cards are out there. I'm just, whatever they say, how it is received, it is. And I'm just putting it out there with no holds barred.
Joe here, just in the chat, he didn't want to interrupt you, said hi Joe, by the way.
Hello. Sorry.
You said you must be an early boomer. It happened when you turned 40. Yeah, we had Adam Lawson on yesterday. He's got a new book coming called The Kill Journal, and he's like, yeah, I'm a showrunner. I've got 5 seasons on a TV show. I've got an Indiegogo I launched that was really successful. I got another one coming that everyone's talking about. I got all these signups, and here I'm also pitching an animation. I was feeling that listening to that going, yeah, what have you done with your life?
He deliberately agreed to be here just to shame us all. God.
Yeah, pretty much.
Actually, you say,
wow,
when
did he come onto this show?
When you're 50, everybody asks, what are you doing and why are you doing it and where are you going? That sounds like high school graduation too.
Yeah.
But everyone, when you're in high school, they don't really expect anything of you.
Yeah. When you graduate from high school, you feel that you have, decades, eons in front of you to experience everything. Mm-hmm. And then at 50, you're like, whoa, okay. Yeah.
So you get that now or never feeling
for you. Yeah.
And now it's, Hey, time's running out. No crap.
Hey,
Right.
James, have you heard of a drop bear before?
A drop bear?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It's like a vicious version of a koala that drops out of trees here in Australia and latches onto the necks of unsuspecting American tourists.
Oh, I was going to say, so it's
And,
like a snipe. Is that what you're saying?
I've actually
I neither
got
can
a
confirm nor deny.
Well, I have a trophy of one that I took out myself. I'll go get it if you're interested in seeing
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Do that, Joe.
Okay,
do
I'll be
that.
right back.
Do that. And Mo's wondering
to
who would
share.
win between a bobcat and a drop bear.
Yes, you need to share this animal with Neil Adams sometime because he is really into cryptids. You know, of course, Sewell-Kalu, which is Bigfoot, is part of this, and we can get to him in a little bit. But you know, Neil Adams, he does auctions on Facebook 2 times a week, and he'll give dissertations and talk about stuff and anecdotes, and it's really very interesting. But he's 1,000% just saying, hey, these cryptids are here. Bigfoot's there, the dogmen are there, you know, and so I'm sure he would totally get off on the koala-esque bear that, you know, leaps from the tree and pounces on people. Hey,
There you
Austin,
go. How did you kill that thing?
With my bare hands, like an Aussie.
Yeah.
Koalas aren't bears, though.
Smashed it over the head with an empty VB bottle.
But what the thing is though is when you get the taxidermist to, you know, work their magic, you actually have to replace the eyes because they're blood red when they're alive, and the reason is because so they're just raging maniacs when they attack, and their eyeballs fill with blood, and then if you kill them, their eyeballs explode. And their blood is toxic, so they're trying to kill you even as they die. Oh yeah. And so even as they're dying, they're trying to kill you. So the taxidermist just, you know, puts these little fake eyeballs into the eye sockets for you.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
It's very kind of them. Yeah.
Well, we are going to have a slightly shorter show than normal, so we should actually get right into this.
So before you do, James, you really looked up to Neil Adams.
yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
and how was it that you got to meet him while Mike's pulling your campaign up?
Yeah, we I don't want to get too long and string it out too far, but in 2014, my wife and I decided we were going to go meet William Shatner, who was my other childhood hero. There were the 2 dudes in the early 70s that I thought were period, and it was Captain Kirk, William Shatner, and Neil Adams. And so anyway, we went to go see William Shatner in Tulsa, and we got the special VIP and all this stuff. And we even though both of us had been comic fans in the past, we'd never really done any of this. So we decided to jump into it, and we just went nuts on it. And at the same, it was Wizard World in Tulsa. And anyway, Neil was there also, as well as William Shatner. So I'm like, dude, I'm in heaven here with these guys. So that's when I got to meet them. And of course, Neil is very personable, and if he's in the right mood, he will talk your leg off, which is great. William Shatner is another story, but we caught him on a couple of we saw him a few times, and we've caught him on a couple of pretty good days, and then the other days aren't as good as far as him feeling like he wants to interact with people. But that was the thing. I thought they were it, and just lived and breathed, you know, because Neil Adams had the amazing over-the-top Batman art. He brought Batman back from the campy, you know, fun stuff to the Dark Knight. He kind of brought him back to that, and had the amazing art that when I was a kid, I even recognized it. I said, there's hardly anyone that can compare when you go page to page with what he does. You know, I just thought he was the most realistic artist. And by the way, this banner, I'm turning the wrong way. The banner right here behind me, this standard for the character was the very first one ever drawn, and Neil drew it. That's done by Neil Adams.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
The logo, by the way, I'm still leaving that out. The logo was, I had done a concept for it and it looked sort of like a old parchment or kind of distressed and rotting leather. And Neil looked at it and he said, "Nope, this is non-committal. It's not going to work. What it needs to be is it's supposed to look like it's carved out of wood with claws." And I was like, cool. And so he's all about logos. He likes to do them, and I didn't know that. And so I commissioned him to do that for me.
Cool.
It is something that, if the logo doesn't fit, if it's not the right style for the story, it can be quite jarring. There's a lot of, you'll find when you start meeting comic creators, there's a lot of graphic designers out there, but there are too many logos that don't fit with the story. So it's good to see that you got one that does. This is your first foray with the story into Indiegogo. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we've done 6 successful campaigns on Kickstarter, and this is the very first Indiegogo.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
how have you found that that transition?
It's different. It operates, of course, differently in some ways, and I'm learning that. I don't know. I mean, traffic-wise, I don't know if I have as much traffic at this point than I normally do on the Kickstarter campaigns. But again, I'm brand new to this, and the BOBCAT has never been on Indiegogo before, so we just have to get people aware of it.
We've had a couple of people come on who have run a bunch of Kickstarters, and the thing I think we're finding out is that it's not necessarily, people don't just necessarily jump between the two. There seems to be pretty distinct audiences for both.
Right.
So it can, I think people are finding out, and that may surprise them, it can take some time to build up your Indiegogo audience, as well as the other audiences that people have elsewhere. Some people have them on Facebook. Some people have them on YouTube. But we're here on this channel, I think most of us favor Indiegogo for a bunch of different reasons. But, Kickstarter's got that massive deal going on right now with the Keanu Reeves book, which potentially could change a lot of things. Who knows?
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
On to BOBCAT. So this is your 5th issue.
Yes, issue 5. It is issue 5 will be the second chapter of the BOBCAT trade paperback volume 2. And the entire story arc surrounds the origin and sort of explanation of Dr. Shock, and where the characters in the story interact with Dr. Shock and see what he has to do. Of course, since it's already out, I'm not going to be blowing anything or spoiling anything, but issue 4, the one previous to this, which is the first chapter of volume 2, shows the origin of Dr. Shock, who was a protege of Nikola Tesla. And this entire story arc opens in New York City in 1895, 3 years prior, because in actual history, Tesla's lab burned to the ground, and there was never a complete, full explanation or anything put on the records as this is what happened. So, of course, we offer an alternative explanation as to why Tesla's lab burned to the ground in 1895.
Yeah, I watched your trailer. There's the whole, what was it called? The Current Wars.
The Current Wars.
Between Tesla and Edison, alternating current and direct current.
Yeah,
and there was, Edison was a master PR guy. He was able to, command just everyone's attention and direct it where he wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
It is a fascinating part of history, and I always wonder, if things had have gone differently, it could have changed the course of history.
I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the back to the movie, the current wars. I actually had my book written and published before the movie came out, and of course, the actual title for that particular chapter, issue 4, is Current Events. And so I wanted to make sure after the movie came out, I was telling everybody, hey, I had current events before current wars came out. I didn't copy all of it.
I'm presuming this guy up here, the top. This is Dr. Shock, is it?
That is Dr. Shock, Dr. Augustus Aloysius Fletcher. And yeah, he's very, he's extremely intelligent, very verbose, very arrogant, and very crooked too. Yeah, he's treacherous and greedy.
Is he the main antagonist in the second volume?
Absolutely right. It's the Dr. Shock story arc, the entire thing. And of course, 1898 isn't way back in the Old West. Here in Indian Territory, Oklahoma, 1898, it was like the very tail end. It was like ending, right at that time. And so when you've got a guy bringing in the industrial age technology and coming from New York City and the electricity and the advanced weaponry and machinery, there's quite a contrast, and the conflict becomes very interesting to see people living kind of in the old world, how they face the future,
So what's so that's the steampunk side of the motif. What about the Bobcat himself? Like, what is the significance other than you mentioned is the forest ghost, I think was the term. What's this? Is there any significance to the Bobcat in Cherokee beliefs?
Again, there's not a. I don't know everything I need to know on that. I'm still learning from the tribe, actually, but there's no big story that I'm taking from Cherokee mythology on the Bobcat himself. But I am using the Cherokee mythology in with my fictional character in the Bobcat, in my story. The reason he becomes the Bobcat is there's a cat that has lived for decades, which of course a natural cat is not going to live that long. And he's watched over the tribe, and he chose Will Firemaker. And Will has no idea why. And this is one of the great little nuances of the story. The main protagonist is learning about things and totally surprised or astonished as it unfolds, and he's right in the middle of it. And the reader is doing the same. So the great cat befriends him when he was a child and was with him all those years, and he ends up getting killed. And the medicine man, Unaduti, Unaduti is to Will Firemaker as Obi-Wan Kenobi is to Luke Skywalker. Right. So he finds him and he says, hey, you've got a destiny here. We're going to take you to the Qualla Boundary, which is a real place. It's where the Cherokees came from in North Carolina. And the Qualla Boundary is the homeland. And he takes Will back there to find out what his destiny and his legacy is. And they go to a cave where the medicine men meet with the little people. And the little people, of course, are from Cherokee mythology, and they share secrets with the medicine men. So when they're there, the little people reveal to Will, unbeknownst to him, he is from a long line of ancestral chiefs, not elected chiefs, but ancestral. And so they tell him that, hey, guess what? The great cat is gone. You're going to be the guardian of the people. And so he was like, wow, he's totally overwhelmed, doesn't know what to do, but he's like, I will accept that charge and step forward and do it. Will Firemaker is a long distance runner. He is a sprinter, and he's a blacksmith too, so he's strong. So he doesn't have any superpowers himself, but he is quite the athlete and has quite the ability and dexterity.
And the moral fiber and will of the hero.
I lost you for a second. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I lost you.
I was saying it, like the moral fiber and will of a hero, the willpower we usually find in a hero, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, from the standpoint of the newer comics versus the old traditional, old school, the character himself is a little more old school, even though he's a Cherokee protagonist. And when has there been a Cherokee hero in any of comics ever? and I think it's zero as far as at least the major publishers, et cetera. And there's been very few Native Americans. So that part of it is fresh, but the character himself is kind of like the old school true hero. He's pure of heart. He cares about everyone. He doesn't have any ulterior motives. He doesn't, have a chip on his shoulder per se, but he is ready and willing to step up to the plate and do what needs to be done. And of course, he doesn't like the bad dudes. He doesn't like the evil and the treachery. He's brave and courageous, and he'll take them on.
Yeah.
This is where they're fighting in the woods here, and Sewell Kalu makes his first appearance like on the next page, I believe. And Sewell Kalu, of course, let me explain a little bit about him. He is Bigfoot. He is from Cherokee mythology, and that mythology is hundreds of years old at a minimum. And he is, not only is he Bigfoot, Sewell Kalu is like the king of the Bigfoot. He's huge, gargantuan. And in this picture here, he's not as big as he really is in the story. That was for the sake of the cover. But anyway, so Sewell Kalu, there he is. Yeah, that's a lot closer to what his size is. Of course, he's friendly to the tribe. He's an ally of Will's, and of course, Sewell Kalu knew the Great Cat, so he already knows what's going on, and so he's there for Will. And what's great about Sewell Kalu is it's authentic Cherokee mythology, so it fits with the story, but yet at the same time, our hero, who doesn't have superpowers, has his own Hulk that he can bring in anytime he wants to help him kick some tail, which makes it really wonderful, I think. And of course, Unaduti, the medicine man, was friends with Sewell Kalu all along. And, it's just a wonderful combo to have him in there and to introduce that character. There is a rock in North Carolina in the Qualla boundary called Judacola Rock, and it has these etchings and markings and pteroglyphs or petroglyphs in the rock that neither laypersons nor professionals can interpret or decipher. And Cherokee legend holds that those marks were put in the stone by Sewell Kalu himself using his finger. And that's all real. That's the rock is there and everything. That's a real deal.
I love that stuff.
I like how some of this is in sepia tone for, I don't know for what sake. Maybe it's flashbacks, but it's an interesting coloring choice.
Thank you. Yeah, it's 1898, so we're kind of making you feel like we're back there, kind of the sepia imagery, and we'll throw in some color here and there. Yeah,
we've talked about the second volume, which is Dr. Shock. What happens in your first volume, the first 1, 2, 3 issues, I presume?
Yes. It's mainly an origin introduction to the character, and we walk through the whole process of Will finding out that he is destined to become the Bobcat. Then he begins to don his costume, which, by the way, the top of the costume and his headpiece, the outer part is the actual cat that was killed, and he took his skin, his hide, and he has adorned it on himself. And beneath, he has a helmet and a chest plate made from what they call the spirit metal. And the spirit metal was revealed to him when he went to the Qualla boundary. The little people showed him where it was. And of course, what we're saying indirectly in there, it came from a spacecraft that crashed thousands of years ago. And that's where the spirit metal comes from. And so it's an armor that he has underneath that bobcat skin.
This is what I love about comic books. Yeah. You can just, put all the things that you love into them, and it can work. It's a very malleable medium. You can have aliens and fantasy and traditional legends and westerns, and someone who knows what they're doing can definitely make all that stuff work. Whereas in other mediums, you know, you need to sell it to, say, like a TV show. They need to sell it to the marketers, so they're not going to do that. They're going to know we need to focus on one thing here. But I think that's one of the real beauties of making a comic book.
Absolutely.
Now, I
Right.
noticed it looks like if we want to catch up just 1 through 5 all at once, the way you've put that in your perks seems to be get the floppies, all 5 floppies, and that's around the. Mike is scrolling very fast. I'm getting seasick. That's going to be around the $45 mark or
Mhm.
the introduction
Right.
pack.
Right.
With a shirt.
What's in that one? Of course, issue 5 will be there when it's completed, but it has the single issues 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then one of them has one of the perk options is a trade paperback, which of course the trade has issues 1, 2, and 3 in it. It doesn't have 4, but it does have bonus material that does not appear in the first 3 books, which makes it kind of a cool deal to have that as well.
Apologies.
Oh no,
What
yeah.
else have we got here?
There's just under, it's right around 100 pages in the trade with all the bonus material. We have bios on the characters, which are really cool. We have history pages with historic facts and things that happened. In the first one, of course, we have Juddakula Rock appears in there on one of the history section pages, and the Trail of Tears, of course. One of my goals of this book is to educate through entertainment. And we're putting a lot of things in there. Some of it people know widely or somewhat widely, is somewhat known. And there are things that are not, but they're actual fact. And so they are laced in the story, but at no point is it overwhelming or heavy-handed or a lecture about anything.
Yep.
It's not a morality play. It's just fact. And we're just putting it out there and it works in with the story and people can go, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, that's cool. You know, and
I'm so big on that. Having your characters have, even if it's just a foothold, just a tangential link to something that is real. Like you showed earlier, I was scrolling down, you know, there's a place in the story that you can actually go to. You can go to that place in real life. And you were mentioning earlier, you know, there's this rock with this inscription on it. It's said to be this. This is all real stuff. It just gives so much more weight to the characters and the story, and it just makes it that much more exciting as well.
Absolutely, I totally agree. You know, just to give you a little insider info, back when I started to really delve into this, and all the ideas that I had, plus the new ideas began to flow, as it came together and I began to do research beyond what I knew already, just to find things out, it came together so organically. I know that word's overused, but it just worked and it melded. And I mean, it was like, I get goosebumps when I was doing it. I was like, this is freaking working, you know? And,
that's when you know the story's good, when you give yourself the goosebumps in your
yes,
writing.
Exactly. It's kind of like, I pulled this out of the cosmos. It's been out there and I've got it. I have it in my hands, you know? So, and, you know, what's great about this for me is that I think I'm covering the bases with what's going on in the comic book world right now. And because I have a Native American character, you know, we're talking about actual history and mythology. So we're kind of covering the bases of all inclusion and diversity, which is great, but there's nothing in it that is a preachy agenda. And so I can please people on both ends of the spectrum. And I'll just say this right out. The Bobcat is the Bobcat. He's a man. He will never be a woman. He will never be a white guy. He is a Cherokee. And that's where he's going to stay. And we're hoping he becomes, you know, and somebody wants to turn him into something else, but it ain't going to happen.
He won't ever get confused about which type of plumbing is under those leather breeches.
Exactly. And I'll let out a little hint. There is going to be a female character, and I will not tell you who it is, but I'll go ahead and tell you her name. and it is the Manx. And a Manx is a more domesticated cat with a bobtail. So we've got a female showing up in there.
Manx cats are pretty cool. For anyone in the chat who isn't aware, they originate on the Isle of Man over in the UK, which is a very interesting and unique place. And it's a place where these cats come from, and they're born without tails. So that's a very cool addition, I would say, to your story, James.
Yeah, thank you very much for that information too. I knew some of that, but yeah, I love fleshing it out like that. Again, that's one of those things you're like, ooh, this is working so good,
Despite what you may have heard, James, we are all for actual diversity over here. We love to see all the different kinds of characters and stories. We love to hear all the different viewpoints, and we love to meet all the different kinds of creators out there. Like you hinted at, we just don't like the fake forced diversity merely to check off preordained ever-changing quotas and tick boxes and all that sort of silliness that we think just it gets in the way of a good story.
Totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll go a little step further. People that are commandeering or capturing these characters and turning them into whatever they want, they're just stealing the brilliance and the talent and the creativity of the people that made that character in the first place, because they obviously don't have it themselves. And so, I say you could make a zillion new characters and be as diverse as you want, but just make them good so they're work, and don't steal someone else's property. Don't steal their creation. Don't steal their soul there and try to make it yours,
Yeah, it's when they take a popular character that everyone loves, and then they say, I have a message that I need to get out there, and I'm going to put it into the voice of this character. That character's actual, their essence be damned.
Right.
He's going to say this now because I want him to.
Absolutely. I'm totally on board with that, and that's part of why I created the character, because I'm like, nobody's done this, and I'm not ripping off anything from anybody, and we just need to. I wanted it to be an example of what people can do. Hopefully it wasn't going to suck, and it turns out it doesn't suck, and people can go, yeah, we need to make some quality introductions of whatever character you want, gay, transgender, whatever. But make it good and make it work, and don't steal someone else's established success to push an agenda. Yeah.
Well, when I was a freshman in college, we had to, and let's say English 101 was still 2 classes. The 102 got into a whole lot of reading PC. Like it had to be very special to read a male author at all, but it couldn't be white. Of course, and that kind of thing. And we had some stories in there that were just absolutely terrible. They were just horribly written, and but we had to read them, and they were held up as being good when they were just they were empty. There was nothing in them. Whereas what I like here is you seem to, and I'm looking ahead and guessing. My impression of this with the meeting of technology, even though it's a fictional technology and steampunk, that's fine. Technology with old traditional ways. It looks like there might be not a lot of preaching in here, as you said there isn't, but application that people can find on their own, which is in the head of the reader, not the pen of the writer. And then you bring into that really what is Western literature, that is the European ideas of heroics and who a hero is. So you don't just have 2 things blending together, you have 3. And in the Native American stories I read in college, none of them had any of this. They were kind of meandering, and it was mostly short stories, but they were kind of meandering and pointless, to be honest. And this looks different. We have a character, self-discovery. He's on a journey. He's growing. He has obstacles to overcome. He has 2 mentors involved. Yeah, it's not necessarily the hero's journey. It doesn't have to be. It's not the recipe, but I still see a lot of things that make this interesting as a character, and that's just looking from the outside. So nice job.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Who is this guy up at the top with the big bird behind him? What is this? Thunder Being.
He's already been revealed in issue 4, but that is a Thunder Being. And I'd need to look at the word again to remind myself how to pronounce it in Cherokee. It's pretty complex. But the Thunder Being shows up because and the protagonist and the medicine man and everyone else, they don't know why he's there. The medicine man brings Will and his father to Sparrowhawk Mountain because he's been seeing visitations of this Thunder Being. Well, the reader knows all of a sudden, because the reader's been looking behind the scenes, the Thunder Being was attracted to the area because Dr. Shock has been there in a cave doing his electrical stuff, and he's brought that mythological character to Tahlequah because he senses the power and the electricity, whatever he's drawn there. And that's one of those inferred things. You don't have a character going, Dr. Shock is here, so the Thunder Being has, come to investigate what's going on, or he senses the energy. It's just, I put it out there where people can say, oh, that's why he's there. He's attracted to what's going on. And of course, the Thunder Being knows something is going to happen. He doesn't know yet. And as of issue 4, no one is aware of the presence of Dr. Shock yet. He has, the character has shown up as a professor teaching at the Cherokee Female Seminary, but no one knows all of the sinister plots and the alter ego that he has.
That's a nod to your grandmother.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, she went to school there and got her teaching certificate literally about 100 years ago. It was during World War I. I think it was, I think she was there like in 1917. And my grandfather, the reason my name is Hostler, he was from Pennsylvania. And of course, you've seen the movies and, the World War I stuff. There weren't tanks and Jeeps and all this stuff everywhere and trucks. It was horses and wagons. And so my grandfather he was a doughboy, they called him then. And he was with the artillery regiment and came through Tahlequah. He ran into my grandmother who was going to school there, and boom, it was over. They eloped and never went back, So he became an Oklahoma guy. And yeah.
And now you're here.
Some people have been commenting about they like the art. I've seen that at least twice and maybe 3 times in the scroll. Can you talk to us about your artist?
Yes, Jim Mesling is his name. He lives in Des Moines, Iowa. We met him in 15 or 16, and we met him in Tulsa at Wizard World. And I'm going to give full credit to my wife. She found him. I was over on the celebrity side of things, just soaking it up with all of the Walking Dead stars that were there. I was in heaven there. And she calls me on the phone because she's on the opposite end of the convention. And she says, hey, you need to come over here to the artist section. I found a guy that I think you're going to like his stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. So I go over to his table. I start looking at it. And I was like, yeah, I like the style. This is really nice stuff. And I proceeded to tell him about my book and the entire concept and where it was going. And he just lit up. And he said, Native American stories and Westerns are my wheelhouse. I love it. I was like, well, cool. And then he goes, well, who's your artist? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm still working on that. He goes, I want to be it. I want to do it. And the rest is history. Yeah, it was one of those serendipitous moments.
That's cool. So has he been your artist for the entire series so far?
He is the main artist for the body of all the books. I bring in guest artists to do different things here and there. I do, some supplemental art or pinup gallery with some guest artists' interpretations. And I've had the cover, if you can see on the trade paperback in the image you have up there, it's at the bottom of that group of books. That was done by a guy named Alex Kotkin. And Alex Kotkin worked for a guy that was partners with Stan Lee with his, while he was alive, of course, the Stan Lee Excelsior Collectibles. And do promotional work and this and that. The guy that I met, I had just put out 2 issues of the Bobcat, and he liked it so much. I saw him at a show, and he was there collecting books for CGC and for Stan. And he said, "I'm going to have Alex do you a cover." I was like, "Okay."
All right.
So, I was like, whoa, I was floored. So he just had Alex do that cover for me. And I mean, what a wonderful, generous, kind thing to do. And to me, it made me feel so good that someone just totally immersed in the comic culture and has seen everything, liked it, what I had so much that he volunteered to have somebody work on it. And I was wow, I'm overwhelmed by that.
It is.
Right here. Go ahead.
Sorry, for a moment there, I thought you had stopped speaking. I was just going to say that it's probably the most interesting Brian Bolin Killing Joke tribute that I have seen. And I've seen a lot, but I really, really like this cover. So kudos.
Thank you very much. I had some ideas for it, and the guy that really said, "This is what you need to do," and I took it. His name is Brian Silverbacks. Have you guys heard of him?
I don't think so.
I haven't, no.
Brian Silverbacks. He is with Scout Comics, and he does different freelance things. And I met him through our submissions editor at Caliber, and became acquainted with him. And then we were in Reno, Nevada at the end of, it was in November, 1st of November last year, and we decided to do this homage to the Killing Joke. And he ran with it. And you know how when you find something that clicks with the artist, you know you're going to get the best stuff you can possibly get, because they're not trying to please you, or they're not forcing something because they're not really getting your idea. He said, "This is how we need to do it." And Dr. Shock is a perfect character to emulate the Joker figure in this. And so he went with it, and he told me when he was done, he said, "This is one of the best covers I've ever done." I was like, dude, I have to say, it's absolutely the best I've seen. It's the best Bobcat cover so far. So we've been really thrilled with that.
Good.
James, unfortunately, we are going to have to leave it there. I do have to prepare for the next stream, but it's been a blast talking to you, man. I'm really digging what you're doing here, the whole background, everything you've put into this book, and just the sheer story of you, like, I'm getting to 50, and it's now or never, and you did it, man. You're doing it. And I just got to tip my hat to you, because, a lot of people want to do it, but actually, talking the talk and walking the walk are 2 different things. So congratulations there. I hope you do find your audience in Indiegogo and anywhere that you go, and you keep putting out Bobcat comics, because I think this is a really great property. I do also have to mention thank you to Drew, good friend of the channel. Drew, he sent us $2. He said, "Yay for super chats. Captain Love Chapter 2 launches soon." Fantastic. So everyone go sign up to Drew's campaign for his mailing list if you want to get on board with that. Guys, we are going to close it out. I got to do some things, and we'll see you. Anyone here in the chat, hang around. We'll don't hang in this stream. On this channel, hang around on this channel. We're about to go live with Clint and Charlie to talk Fatal. It's going to be really fun. Again, James, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your project with us. And yeah,
Thank
guys,
you. Thanks for having me on there. It's very nice to meet you, gentlemen. Yeah, a pleasure.
Fantastic.
Nice to meet you too.
I'd just like to say, James, I'm not sure if you've seen the chat, but you got a lot of very positive feedback on your comics, and we've got several people who are saying they're going to back, and I am one of them. Definitely looks like a great project.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
Excellent. Yeah, and as always, thank you to the chat. I've been reading every single one. It's been difficult because there's been so many of you, and you've been pretty funny today. But we did also want to try and get to know James a little bit. All right, guys, we will see you in, about 5 minutes. I really do have to go. Thanks a lot. See ya.
Bursting bladder.